In this video, we're going to take you into Adobe Camera Raw with CS6 and show you some different settings than I was using in CS4. We'll start off by double-clicking on the thumbnail over here. Okay, here we are in Adobe Camera Raw. There are certain settings that I always apply to all of my images. We're going to go ahead and make those settings, and then we're going to save them in a way that they'll automatically apply. So clarity 7, it used to be 15, now I like it at 7. They put new math under this front tab, and now I like clarity of 7. We'll go ahead and put the vibrance at 35. We'll come back here to our detail tab. The sharpening I always like to use is 35 for the amount, radius of 1. Incidentally, I'm transferring from each box here by using the tab key. Detail of 50, masking of 35. I want those settings to apply to every one of the images I work through in Adobe Camera Raw. Let's go back over here to our HSL tab. Typically, I don't like the way greens record digitally, so I usually modify them ever so slightly, and a good starting point for me is 50 for the hue, or pardon me, 5 for the hue with yellow, 10 for the, oops, let's go back and put 5 in there, hit the tab key, 10 for the green. I like to shove that off to the right just a little bit. That usually makes things saturate a little too much to my taste, so now I pull back the saturation in those two colors. And the luminance, I often then like those lightened up just a little bit, so now I'm adding just a little bit more in terms of luminance to those colors that I'm modifying here. Then we're going to go back to the lens correction tab. For profile, I no longer enable the automatic lens correction because I often don't like the distortion removed, and I don't like the vignetting removed. The vignetting is working with a light fall off in the corners of the frames. I kind of like that. But let's click on the sub-tab color. I definitely want to remove chromatic aberration, and actually I found that the purple fringing, for me, when you zoom in at 100%, or pardon me, at 200 or 300%, and you look in the corners and you see that fringing going on in areas of light and dark, we showed you that in our previous video series, I often like this to be at about 2 or 3. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up at 2 right now. After I make all these settings, these are settings I want to apply to every image that I process. So let's come over here and hover over this area right here. We can click on it and we can save these settings. Let's click on Save Settings. Yep, I would like all of these ones saved, so we'll click Save again. Let's just title this Andy CS6 Raw Settings, and click on Save. Now we can come back up here and save new Camera Raw defaults. So now every time I open an image, these will be the default settings that I come in with, and I don't have to go back and individually make these changes for each image. Alright, so what might we like to do to this particular image? Well, the foreground seems rather bright. It's not overexposed to where it's burned out, but it's rather bright. So let's go ahead and start taking the highlights down. Okay, that looks good. And I'm just doing this to taste. I'm watching the image and just pulling with, making adjustments by pulling on the sliders here. Alright, I like the way the foreground's looking. Can I modify the shadows at all? Open up those bushes a little bit. Okay, let's go with that. Well, let's take a look at the preview checkbox. I like where the sky's gone. I like where the foreground's gone. Let's just go ahead and check on this next tab. Often I add a little bit of contrast by making the lights at +5 and the darks at -5. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, just a little bit. Although in this case I don't think it's worth it, so I'm going to leave it alone. Zero those back out. We have the settings already done here for sharpening. Actually, as I look at the image, I'm not unhappy with anything else going on in here, so I don't see any reason to affect any of the colors, and we know we've got our fringing dealt with here and chromatic aberrations. So at this point in time, we're going to go ahead and click Open Image. Note that our hot link here is going to take this into Photoshop as a Pro Photo color space, 16-bit, and it's not going to up-res or down-res. So we'll go ahead and click on Open Image, and it'll take it into Photoshop. Now this image is pretty well done. I really can't think of anything else I want to do to it here in Photoshop, but for fun, let's just try a few things, see if we can get any kind of an improvement. These are the kind of things that I typically might do to an image. Let's start off by going back to the Actions tab and click on the Actions tab. Let's run down here. We're going to make a new set. Let's call it Colors and Contrast. And click OK. And we'll go ahead and click on Create New Action. Let's go ahead and call this new action Velvia and Soft for soft light. That'll be the blend mode we're going to use. It's going to be under Colors and Contrast. This keyboard shortcut we're talking about, let's make it F2. So every time I've got an image open, if I press F2, it's going to do this action to whatever layer is the current action. And we'll go ahead and click Record. Let's click on the Layers tab, drag and drop the background layer right here to create a new layer. Let's change the blend mode to soft light. Let's change the opacity to 15%. Let's come back to the Actions tab, stop the recording. Let's go back out to the Layers tab and see what we've done. Let's throw this away, trash can. Now here we are, this is the selected layer, so if we press F2, it's going to make a copy of it, change the blend mode to soft light, and apply 15%. Come back to our Actions tab, we'll see that we have a new folder here, the Colors and Contrast, with the Velvia Soft, if you will, action inside. What else might we like to do to this image? Well, first off, do I even like the effect here? Oh, in some areas I do, and some I don't. Let's try another thing I often like to do. Let's throw that away. Whoops, made a copy. Let's throw it in the trash can and throw that one in the trash can. Something else I like to do is a little bit more complicated, but let's walk through it slowly. I want to make a copy of this right here. I'm going to show you some keyboard shortcuts because you want to get fast on doing these things. So hold the Control key down, press the, that's Command for Mac, hold the A, press the A key, that's selecting all, see the marching ants around the entire image. Continue to hold the Control key down and press C. Now you've made a copy of that selection. And now we're going to hold the Control key down still and press D to deselect. We've just made a copy of that image, thrown it up on the clipboard. We're going to use it in just a minute possibly. However, we're now going to work on this background image by going to Image, down to Adjustments, over and down to HDR Toning. Sometimes I like this effect. Breathes a little life into the image and makes it a little more, scrumptious. Typically though, the highlights get a little too bright, so I usually pull these back. And again, you're going to do this to taste, just kind of wiggling it. Okay, I kind of like that. Sometimes the shadows get a little bit too grainy, and so I back those down a little bit too. Again, just to taste. You can turn a preview on and off. Wow, that's quite a lot of life. Let's click OK. As a matter of fact, that is too much life, and it almost always is too much life, which is why we have that starting image up on a clipboard, because now I can hold the Control key down, press V, and we'll paste it back into this file here, and we have these two that maybe we can blend together, because this is too much, this could use a little life, but it's in the right direction. The way I like to do it is I like to throw the lock away on the background, take the top layer, put it on bottom. On bottom, there was the original image. On top, we have the one that we went through that we ran through the HDR toning. That's too much. We want to blend them together. We can simply take the opacity of the layer, this top layer, start pulling it back until we see something we like. Or we can leave the opacity at 100%, add a layer mask by clicking this little symbol right here. Then use the keyboard shortcut B to call up your brush tool. There it is, the brush tool is selected. Change the opacity whatever you'd like. Usually 50% is a good starting point to blend together. Make sure that black is the foreground color. I'm going to use the right bracket key to open up the brush. Again, all of these controls and all these adjustments are dealt with in our first video series. Here we're just working through and processing images. So now I'm going to go along and brush in black on the mask. Again, the mask is what's selected by this white outline, so that's where I'm brushing. I'm actually brushing this color on the mask. So that's a 50% blend there too. Yeah, maybe I kind of like that. It actually has a little bit more life. Next thing I'd like to do after I do this though, is I'm going to hit Z on the keyboard to bring up my zoom tool, go to actual pixels, tab away my side panels. I'm going to view the image at 100%. Looking for dust. Picked up a little bit of noise in this processing. It's going to be acceptable for now. People. Right click. Fit on screen. So what I don't like in here is I don't like two things as I look at this image further. There's a little bit of a darkening here from some polarization. I got a little too greedy with the polarizing filter out in the field. If I could lighten this area back up, I think it would look more natural. Now let's go ahead and click on the half circle down here. And let's open up, let's try a curves adjustment layer. Let's run up to lighter. It lightens up the whole image. That's a little too strong. I could now, because the mask is outlined, invert that to a black mask. Control I. Switch my foreground color to white. Grab my brush tool. Just start lightening this up a little bit. That's probably all I need to do right there. Okay, so there we have it. I like the adjustment. We've lightened that area just a little bit, and I'm more or less happy with the image. I'm going to zoom out and take a look at it. Alright, like it like this. You know, maybe I could lighten this in here a little bit more. As I get smaller, I can see different effects, and it seems to be a little too dark right in there yet for my taste. So, go ahead and select the brush tool. Let's take the opacity back to something a little more subtle. Enter on the keyboard to accept it, and let's make a little smaller brush here using the open bracket key. Alright, I'm a little happier with that. That's really a much less noticeable. Yeah, that looks a lot better, and as I come smaller, it's far less noticeable. Alright, I think I have the image pretty much where I like it. Okay, I've made all of the adjustments because I like the colors, I like the contrast, I like the way everything's looking in here. So now I'm going to save this image off. File, Save As. And I'm going to save this as a master file. These days I'm going to call it something like, Hawaiian Sailboat. Yep, I can type sailboat. And I'm going to save it, the year it was shot. Now I don't remember. Let's just call it 2011. And I'm going to save the image numbers with it so I can go back and find that. If I ever want to find that raw file again, back in my raw file folders, I can go back and find it. I'm no longer putting master on because this is being saved as a PSD file with spaces between, which to me by default indicates this is a master file. Go ahead and click Save. After this gets done saving, I want to see how large of an image I think I can print with it and still have it remain acceptable looking. So I'm going to test the overall image. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so after I get done saving it, I want to know what's the largest image I can print and still find it acceptable to look at. To do that, so we've saved it off, now I'm going to fiddle with it some more. I'm going to go ahead and flatten the layers. I'm doing this so that we don't get too big of an image, and the computer doesn't groan and struggle too hard. So we flatten the layers. We'll go ahead and change the mode to 8-bit. Again, it'll cut the size down here in half. Now I'd like to say, hey, can I print this as a 20 by 30? So image size, let's go ahead and run it up to a 20 by 30. Hey, this is a neat thing about CS6. It's got this automatic. I no longer have to choose bicubic, smoother, or sharper based upon enlarging or reduction. I can simply just leave it on bicubic automatic. It's a step saver. I'm going to click OK. Now, how do I know I'm looking at a print size? Well, if I call up the zoom tool by pressing Z, I can actually go to print size, but that's really not necessarily 20 inches wide on my screen. As a matter of fact, if I go ahead and view rulers, these aren't inches. Let's go into our preferences. Edit, Preferences, General, Units and Rulers. Rulers, change this over here to inches. And click OK. Alright, so if I hold the ruler up to the screen here, this is not a foot. It's a little bit shy. So it's saying print size is not necessarily really print size. If I hold my ruler up to the screen though, and if I change this down here to 32%, now an inch on the screen correlates to an inch in real life. So I'm actually viewing this the way it's going to print, the size it's going to print. And I can see the details, the noise, the sharpness, essentially the exact same way that it's going to print. So I go cruising along the image here. Things look okay. It's a little bit grainy here, but still very acceptable. And everything down here is acceptably sharp. Let's go ahead and try something larger. Image, size. How about a 30 by 45? Okay, it's still 32%. An inch up here is really an inch. Oh, look, a little dust. Okay, that's actually still going to be okay. That's within my parameters of being acceptable. And it's pretty sharp down here. As a matter of fact, it looks pretty darn good. Alright, one more thing. Let's try image, size. I'm going to try 40 by 60. This camera can sometimes get up to 40 by 60. Sometimes it can't. Let's see here. The tree looks pretty good. Everyone's going to have their own taste, what's acceptable. I would probably do this as a 40 by 60. So hit the tab. Let's go ahead and close the image out. We do not want to save those changes. No. But you know what? We did notice a little dust in the sky. We forgot to clean off that dust. So let's open that back up real fast. We're going to go ahead and create a new layer. Zoom into actual pixels and look around for dust. We're going to use the clone tool or the healing brush tool depending upon what's available to us. Let's pull those up real fast. Notice with the healing brush tool we want to sample all layers, otherwise this won't work. And simply hover over, hold down and wiggle around on that area and it'll take care of it and fix those dust spots. I don't see anything else in here that looks like a dust spot. Okay, we can see the dust being removed right there in the middle of the frame. We're looking right here. There it goes. Alright, we'll go ahead now and close that out and save the changes as we're closing. Alright, sad to say it, but I noticed when I was looking at that image, we were panning around, that the sea didn't look exactly level. That's definitely a problem, so let's go ahead and open that image back up and see what we can do. And this is a really good illustration of how you can work back and forth with Adobe Camera Raw even though you're no longer working with a raw file. Adobe Camera Raw will open TIFFs. So in this case, yeah, see this ocean right here? It doesn't look very level. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and flatten the layer and File, Save As. I'm going to just change it to a TIFF image. Click Save and click OK. Close this on down. We're going to run back bridge. There's that TIFF image right there. Let's take this into Adobe Camera Raw by clicking on the little Open in Camera Raw symbol. Okay, I guess in theory, I should have been paying closer attention when I was bringing it through as a raw file, and perhaps I needed to actually enable lens correction. But I don't really want the vignetting, so we'll turn that back off. But the distortion helps straighten this line out just a little bit, but it still doesn't look horizontal. I'm going to click a time or two to make it a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to use the straighten tool to straighten this image. Let's go ahead and put it across here. About like that. And let's go ahead and fit back in view. I'm going to tab enter on the keyboard. And there we go. Now that actually looks a little bit better. Don't like the water running off or running back into shore like that. This point in time, I noticed that said 240. I'd really like that to be 300. That's just 300 because that's the way all of my adjustments that I might do to create output files. I like to have the image be at 300 for that. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And take this on into Photoshop by clicking Open Image. And for now, File, Save As, PSD, because I'm creating a master file. And we'll just go ahead and put V2 so I know I have version 1 and version 2. Save. Let's go ahead and close that down. Go back to Bridge. Alright, this is V2, V1. Yeah, that does look a little bit better. Should have done that earlier on. Okay, we are done processing this image. See you in the next video.